What's up guys, Creighton here from CameraGazer.com. Today we're going to be looking at the Canon 16-35 f2.8L II lens. Now, the 16-35 is one of those must-have lenses for anybody who is getting into professional photography or just amateur photography too and has more upscale equipment. This lens is one of the best lenses for landscape photography. Like I said, you have wide open spaces like this and you can get it all into frame on your camera and the images turn out perfectly. The 16-35, again, great for landscape photographers. And while it's also good at landscape photography, it's also good for really up-close photography as well. So if you have something like this branch here that we're just taking something, for example, and you want to take a picture of it, you can get super close and take a picture just like that. It has, I think, a 0.92 meter focusing range. You can get really close-up shots. One thing to mention, though, this camera is not a portrait camera. For one reason, of course. It's very wide angle, so when you're getting somebody in the camera really close, their facial features will be distorted, such as their noses. If you take really close pictures, their noses will look very blown up. So when you think of something like a portrait lens, you think of something like the 24-70 or the 70-200. That's more of a portrait type lens. This is great for up-close photography that does not include portraits and something like landscape photography as well. Now, something that's a first for this lens is the filter size. It has an 82mm filter size, so that means that you're going to be getting wider filters than most of your probably other lenses have. So you're going to be pretty much locked down to be using those filters on this lens exclusively. Something else that I've noticed is that the bigger, wider filters tend to create a little bit more aberrations in your photos than the slimmer filters will. So when you're looking for filters for the 16-35, go ahead, get those really thin ones. At the widest angle of 16, they cause a little bit of aberrations that I've been seeing in some of my photos without and with the filter on. While most Canon L lenses have 8 aperture blades, the 16-35 has 7. Now, that's for multiple reasons that we'll get into, but the main reason is that those multiple aperture blades, while great for those bokeh shots, bokeh, whatever you want to call them, while they're great for those shots, this lens isn't made to really make those bokeh shots. They're made for wide open spaces. They're made for getting a lot of stuff into the frame and getting it all in focus. So something like this, for example, getting really close up into a plant like that is great for another lens because you can get those bokeh shots with the light in the background making those cool orbs, where this lens is actually better for something like this, looking out at a very wide expansive distance and taking a photo and looking at everything that it has to offer. So when you're thinking of getting this lens, don't think of getting it for those great bokeh shots. Think of it for getting those wide shots that you need a lot of stuff into the frame. Now, let's get a little bit more specifics about this camera. Like I said before, it's 16-35mm. That's on a full frame body. If you're on a crop frame body like this, the T2i, you're actually going to get a 1.6 magnification on the lens. So it's a little bit longer than 16-35 on this camera. If you have something like the 5D Mark III, for example, that I'm using to record this video, you're going to be getting that full 16-35 range. It is a constant 2.8 all the way through the 16-35, so you'll be getting nice wide shots. Nothing on the lens moves out when you're zooming. So if I zoom in and out the lens, you don't see anything coming out of the top. Actually, everything in here is internal. So as you can see, if I move the lens in and out, you can see that the lens starts going back and forth. This is a totally weather-sealed lens, so you can take this out into the rain and be okay with it. One thing around here that you should probably note is that since it has an internal moving mechanism, there's a gasket around this ring right here. So you're going to need something like a filter to put on the top if you want complete waterproofness, I guess you could say. I always like to recommend filters for anybody with lenses, so consider getting a filter for all of your lenses, and that will give you a totally weather sealed look and, well, performance. Unfortunately, the T2i is not weather sealed, so I'm not about to take this and throw it in the snow or the rain. But you get the idea. It is totally weather sealed, so if you're using it with something like a more professional body with weather sealing, go ahead, pick up this lens for using it outside. This lens has a rear zoom dial and a forward focusing dial, so you can have your hands like this, zoom in and out of your pictures to get the shots that you want. It is quite fast at focusing, even on something like a T2i, so you're going to get fast, constant shots. I usually take an extra couple of frames when I shoot, so I always know that at least one of my images are going to be in the focus that I want to, but through my testing, it's been quite good at focusing on the points that I want it to, even with something like the T2i. While this lens is great, it does have a few drawbacks. One of the main drawbacks is the vignetting and the flare that does tend to happen on this lens, not so often, but when it does, it is very noticeable. On something like a crop frame body like this, you're going to notice some vignetting, even at the widest angle. And at the widest angle on a crop sensor lens, it's not going to be that bad. You're just going to see a very even coating all around the outside of the lens on the widest angle of a little bit of vignetting. But that, of course, can be fixed in post. Now, if you're something on a full frame body, it's going to be a little bit more circular, and you're going to notice it a little bit better on those full frame bodies over a crop body like this. So those are both evident, the flaring and the chromatic aberrations and the vignetting, but don't worry about it. All can be fixed with post, of course, and it's really not that noticeable, and it's not that bad. So this lens is great, even those two drawbacks, with the lens itself. Something worth mentioning, though, about this lens is that it does deal with vignetting very well. Don't get me wrong, it's there, but it does deal with it at an astounding level. People compare this to the 17-40, which is great, and over it, it does compare better in the way of vignetting and, of course, overall image quality. I generally recommend this to anybody who's interested in architecture, in getting landscape shots. It's a great lens, don't get me wrong. It has an amazing build quality. It does very well with shots, and you can generally have a very good time with this lens on a crop body or on a full frame body as well. This lens is great because it has a wide aperture and it has a wide focal length. So you can get nice low light shots as well with this camera, as well as getting a lot of things into the frame, which is nice. And I love the build quality of this. The AF system is great on it as well. It's an overall outstanding lens. In all of my testing, I generally recommend this to anybody who's interested in architecture photography, anybody who wants to do landscape photography. This is the lens to get. All right, let's get down to the good, the bad, and my conclusion. So the good about this lens, it's an excellent wide-angle lens. It has a wide aperture, excellent AF system, great for anybody who's a photojournalist, great for anybody who's a landscape photographer, an architecture photographer. This is great wide-angle lenses. The AF system is phenomenal. Again, wide open aperture. It's a very versatile lens for being such a wide angle. The bad? Well, it does have vignetting issues. So you will see vignetting in very wide open shots. On crop bodies, they will show up a little bit better, but it's still there and noticeable. It does have flaring issues as well, but this is version 2, so they've ironed out a little bit of the flare issues, but they're still present in this lens. It is sort of weird that it has this internal focusing zoom mechanism that is only really there with a gasket. So if that gasket breaks at any time and you're in wet weather, well, you can say goodbye to the lens. So I'd like to see a better sealant with this lens as well. Overall though, great lens for anybody with a crop frame, anybody with a full frame body. I definitely recommend it to anybody interested in getting a wide angle lens. Now, this is an L lens, so it does come with a pretty hefty price tag. $1,600 is what the average mean price right now is that it's going for. So you will put down a good chunk of money with this lens. But if you use it for the right occasions and you're using it to make money, it's definitely gonna get its money worth out of it. So thanks again for watching our review of the 16-35 f2.8 L2 lens from Canon. We will have sample shots up on the website, cameragazer.com. Be sure to check out our Flickr feed for those test shots. Of course, You can follow us on our social media profiles, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, all under the username of Camera Gazer. And of course, if you have any questions for me about this lens, about any other questions, you can do one of two things. You can email me, creighton@cameragazer.com, or go check out our forums, forums.cameragazer.com. Go ahead there, ask a question. We have a nice community over there who is there to answer your questions. Thank you again for watching our review. Check out our YouTube channel for more. +1, subscribe. Thanks, guys. We'll see you guys next time.